I'll go ahead and start. I know that folks are gonna keep joining. That's the thing with having a club with just millennials and Gen Zers. We tend to be sometimes a bit fashionably late, as they say it. But good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am immensely grateful for your presence today, especially to the distinguished past governors that also RSVPs joining us from various places in the globe. I'm Alexander Timmins, privileged to serve as the president of the Rotary Club of Global Peace and Leadership in District 2241. We have the honor today of welcoming a significant guest speaker, Barbara Gaughen Muller, the chair of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. The relevance of Barbara's presence resonates deeply when we understand the ethos of our own club. We are composed exclusively of millennials and Gen Z members. Our e-club thrives as a globally connected ensemble of emerging leaders. We are driven by commitment to fostering global peace, leadership, and societal transformation. Beyond being a club, we are an international family, if you will, bonded by shared visions and values, promoting collaboration, inclusivity, diversity, and youth empowerment. One of our landmark initiatives, like I've mentioned earlier, is the Rotaract Global Model United Nations, which is a simulation of decision-making processes and platform for discussing solutions to pressing global issues. We're founded in Baia, Romania in 2013 as part of the Rotaract International Model United Nations. And we really find this initiative instrumental in promoting peace among the younger generation in particular. And we've had successful additions across continents from Romania, United Kingdom, Serbia, US. We've had an addition at the UN headquarters, Bulgaria, Lebanon, India, Mexico, Turkey, and even Nepal. And the next chapter of this journey awaits us in Salerno, Italy, comes this September. A decade ago, we were mostly college students, believe it or not. And today our club boasts a diverse membership of young doctors, war veterans, humanitarians, UN professionals, and successful entrepreneurs from 5 continents. From college to careers and family lives, we've grown together. An apt example is our recent member, Amarachi, who is a global ambassador of the Igbo people from Nigeria, who just celebrated her wedding last weekend. So congratulations, Amarachi. I'm not sure if you've joined yet. We also look forward to welcoming Simin Shams, who is also a millennial and the pioneering female founder of a university in Afghanistan and a torchbearer for the rights of Afghan women. As we evolve as a Rotary Club and individuals, we need to further our mission of peace. And this need becomes really paramount. And in this realization, it's really this realization that has prompted us, the millennials and the Gen Z members of our e-club, to seek guidance, leading us to this insightful speaker series designed to nurture us into more effective Rotarians of actions. So now, without further delay, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Barbara Gaughen Muller. I personally draw inspiration from both Barbara and her late husband, Dr. Robert Muller, who was the former UN Assistant Secretary General. And as an Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran myself, Robert's transition from a World War II freedom fighter to a symbol of peace and compassion within the UN profoundly resonates with me. And similarly, Barbara is an emblem of unwavering commitment to peace and leadership. She is an esteemed leader and has received the Spirit of the UN Award after her influential speech at the United Nations in New York. She is the founder of Gaughen Global Public Relations, and she champions peace across communities and nations, demonstrating that peace can stem from even the most traumatic situations and that healing can be achieved through dialogue. Her extensive outreach, being the president of the United Nations Association Southern California Division, the co-founder of the Rotary Club of World Peace, and chair of the Rotary Action Group for Peace, is truly monumental. Barbara, I don't know if you want to introduce anyone in particular before your talk. I want to make sure that I'm not breaking protocol on not introducing some of your esteemed guests the right way. But thank you so much for being here. We're really, really grateful.
It is an absolute pleasure and an honor to speak with you. But I want to honor on the shoulders on who we stand. We are all alive today. We are here as the descendants of immigrants, as descendants of peacemakers. And so today, rather than introducing any of the wonderful guests who have joined me, because I sent the beautiful flyer that Alex created, I want to honor all the peacemakers who have gone before us, who gave their lives thinking they were bringing peace, who are now in a cemetery and didn't have a full life. And that makes my heart break, but it also makes me realize I have work to do. And that work is because I know peace is possible. I was the Rotary Action Group for Peace Chair 22-23. And as you know, July in Rotary is when we change guard, and the guard changed in 2023 July, and I am the past chair of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. Think of those words, that we can touch 44,000 Rotary clubs. Think of what that means. Think of the joy we have of being alive right now in Rotary. I am so grateful for Rotary. I never would have met Alex if it wouldn't have been for a phone call where he said he's a Peace Builder Club and the new president of his chapter of E-Club. If he wouldn't have called me and I wouldn't have heard him say Rotary, like my grandmother said. I said, "Are you Hungarian?" My grandmother never said Rotary. She said Rotary. And all of a sudden, I felt so much love for my grandmother and my grandfather who immigrated from Hungary to the United States. I have chills because he, at 17, in Hungary before World War I, the coffin maker was piling up the coffins. And he said to the coffin maker, "Why are you doing that?" "Because the war's coming." And my grandfather said, "War? No way." He literally left his beautiful town, and that was Romania, Hungary, depending upon who was in charge. He left with $10 of Romanian money in his pocket and got on the next boat from Hungary to the United States and ended up in Ellis Island. That was a providential boat ride. He met my grandmother, who also was leaving because she could not stand the thought of war. And together they met, and then they went married. And my mother was born. I mean, think about it. And then I was born eventually. And when I was 3, my grandfather said, "You're going to be a peacemaker someday." "Well, 3, Grandpa, I'm only 3. What do you mean I'm going to be a peacemaker? I don't even know what that means." You'll find out, and you have a whole life to be a peace builder. And I keep listening to those words in my subconscious. It's part of my DNA. He was not going to stay in a community where war was going to break out. My grandmother comes from a long line of kings and queens. She left it all to avoid war. If you go to Hungary, you can look at the parliament and find my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, King Báthory, who saved Poland. And those days, they just took their swords and chopped off heads. That's horrible. So my grandmothers and grandfather grew up with tragedy. War just doesn't work. And so when I went back to Hungary, because I'm a member of the Club of Budapest, which Irvin Laszlo started, I saw the devastation of war. I saw Art Deco buildings, Art Deco furniture in ruins. Why? Why? That's the question. Why? Why haven't we, and you all know this, I'm really telling you things you know in your own DNA. Afghanistan. We brought a young lady from Afghanistan to Canada via Des and Jerry. I am an international city of peace. If you want to do one thing, become an international city of peace. Fred Arment helped this beautiful woman escape. She had to do it undercover, as you know. And now, because of the beautiful work of the International Cities of Peace, she's free, but not perfect yet. We don't have a world that's perfect yet. We still have biases. We still have things that aren't fair. And you know that. Do you realize that in 1870, the Mother's Day Proclamation, arise all women who have hearts, the time has come to sit in silence and shame for what is going on. Have we not learned it? What is keeping us from being the passionate persons we need to be? Passion and enthusiasm. A lot of people say, Barbara, no wonder you're working for peace. You're so enthusiastic about it. And I said, that's because I want it to be contagious. I want peace to be so contagious that if somebody sees you, they become peace. They realize that peace takes courage. And I have been using that in my own work lately. Courage over comfort. Think about those words. The next time you're about to write an email and you know something has to be done, and maybe the organization you're a part of or where you work isn't quite ready for your brilliant new idea about how to bring peace, do it anyway. Take the courage, write that email that says, peace is the only way for our planet to bring the harmony and the beauty that we were born into before it's too late. And there's still time. What does John Denver's song sing about peace? Peace, that beautiful word. And it's still possible. We still have time. And if you don't know that song, go on Google, John Denver, and enter the word peace. As I have been telling people in each of my talks, peace is the only way. And you know, it's up to us. In 1994, I'm going back to enthusiasm here. I met my husband at La Casa de Maria. We put on it's a retreat center here in Santa Barbara where I live. And it's a retreat center and people go there to heal. And I was on the board for 25 years because I just love being in a community of nuns, of peace and harmony and orchards and whatever. And I said, well, where do world leaders go? Where do world leaders go to be loved, to be healed, to be in harmony, to not be needed, but just to be? And my board said, we don't know. And I said, well, let's have a conference at La Casa de Maria and invite world leaders. Well, you know, a world leader, they don't go and have a good time. They have to have a reason. And so we gave them a reason. And we invited Tom Van Zandt, who did the Geosphere Project from the United Nations, to be the leader. And we said, Tom Van Zandt, if you could invite 100 leaders, what question would you ask them? He said, I'm not sure. And you know, he's the Geosphere Project. You could see this globe as big as my office, and you would poke on the Philippines. And 25 years ago, you'd see what it looked like. And then 10 years ago, you see what it looked like. And today you see this beautiful ocean and the coral reefs dying. But that was Tom Van Zandt. He wanted to show us what we are doing to nature. He wanted to show us what we are doing to each other. And that's his project. But he didn't know what to ask these world leaders. He wasn't sure. And he said, I'll get back to you in about 3 days. Lo and behold, he did. And we said, okay, would you be our inviter for 100 world leaders? What would you ask? And he said, I would ask, how do you go from linear thinking to global thinking? Let's have a conversation. And then we wrote the letter, sent it out to 100 of the world leaders that Tom Van Zandt knew. Most of them were from the United Nations and presidents of countries, including Ronald Reagan's staff and stuff like that. You may know Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States and also lived in Santa Barbara. And one letter in particular stood out. It didn't have here's my credentials, I'm so wonderful, this is why you were smart to invite me. No, had 3 words, I will attend. And underneath were 2 more words, with enthusiasm. And when I read with enthusiasm, I knew this was a man I had to meet. Well, that was my first experience of Robert Muller at the University for Peace in Costa Rica. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life because I want you to think about your life. Who have you met? Who has resonated with your soul and your heart, as Alex did when we had that conversation on the phone? We talked for about a half hour. And all I did was say, are you Hungarian, like my grandma? Are you Hungarian, like my grandfather? I have so much gratitude for them. And so you never know when a phone call is going to lead you down a path. That phone call led me here today. I am so grateful because I want peace builder clubs around the United States and around the whole earth to do things for peace that would allow them to show their community that they are a peace builder club. You know, we have a lot of Rotarians around the world. Are we all thinking peace? We think we are, but what are our actions? From education to action, what are our actions today? And that's my big question. I'm looking at Tom Carlisi because I want us to put together something that the peace builder clubs can do together in their town. We have the primer on our Rotary Action Group for World Peace, for peace website, but it's like, what can we do? So this is the year 1994. The world leaders show up at La Casa. And I'm invited to take Robert Muller around to get him some speeches and to pay for his trip there because he was at the University for Peace in Costa Rica. And when I met this man, about 5 inches shorter than me, with curly gray hair, blue eyes, and enthusiasm just seeping out of his pores, and peace, and a whistle. And I thought, well, maybe he is enthusiastic about peace like I am. And then I started to take him around to his speeches, and he made a speech at the Libero Theater in Santa Barbara. And I could not believe the words that he spoke. If you're not familiar with Robert Muller, go on Google and put in UN Robert Muller and listen to one of his speeches. This man had a conversation, a happy face, a smile, and he would know what that audience needed. How he did it, I don't know. But he knew exactly what that audience needed, and he got a standing ovation. The 5th standing ovation in 20 years of the program's Mind and Supermind. And I know why. He spoke in a way that resonated with our souls, the souls we were born with. And he always learned from others. as great as he was, he would ask Jerry, think about this. Or Des, what do you think about this? Or Sandy Hinden was his best friend at the United Nations. Sandy and he worked hand in hand to create peace gardens. Think of all the things. Sandy wrote a book about love. Robert just inspired. And look at me, I'm inspired still. He died in 2010. I can't get off the Robert Muller train, and I don't want to. I know who I am. When I met him, I was a big deal, a public relations person. Oh, wow. I had a Jaguar, I had a White House. And Robert says eventually, will you marry me? I'm thinking, there goes my White House. There goes my Jaguar, because I'm going to live at a tiny little shack in Costa Rica. And if you don't believe me, I should have Sandy put up the picture of what I lived in. But there was a rumor on that hill, from this mountain, peace shall go to the entire planet. Look at your own life. What have you stepped or fallen into and can't believe it? There were times when I said, oh, brother, am I sure I can handle this? The internet just went out again. We didn't even have internet. I had an iPhone, but I didn't have a washing machine. I didn't have a stove. Oh, Sandy put up my shack. That's our beautiful home in Costa Rica. We lived in that home in Costa Rica, and we had a pet turkey named Pablo, and he was our guard dog. He would sit on that tin roof at night and keep the coyotes away, because he had claws. And if a coyote came up to eat a chicken, he would claw them, and they didn't come back twice. And so Pablo was there. It was so magic. Can you imagine? And this is a bench of dreams, that everybody who sat on this, these are the St. Francis order, and they sat on the bench of dreams and dreamed for world peace. They would come to our little cabin, and we had this rustic bench of dreams to allow people to live the dreams that they know they needed. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through some of the things that I have learned in my life from what others have taught me, how you can become even more magnification of who you are. You are now a Rotarian. That magnifies out. And have you written a letter to the editor of the Rotary magazine lately? Think about that. What do you have to say that that world needs to hear? Write it in the Rotary magazine. Join your United Nations Association, USA. I'm president of the Southern California Division, United Nations. That's 12 chapters. And we're going to have a meeting next Saturday. And Helen Peacock, who is going to be talking about the power of peace and ending war 101. If you ever look at, there's Mike Caruso right behind him, Ending War 101. Have you ever thought about why we need to end war? What you can say to end war? How you can have peace on our planet? This is a course. In 6 hours, you're going to find out all the reasons why war does not work, but you already know them. But you need that practical vocabulary that will allow you to practice the peace you know our planet needs. And I think the reason I'm happy is because everything is a gift. Everything is a gift. Even the war right now, we are able to see how it isn't working. And the gift that comes from that is the gratitude of where I am today. Yesterday, I sent out something on Facebook. I posted my plums that had just picked off the tree. I put my plums up on Facebook. And I put a picture of my tree, and I said, if everybody had peace on the planet, they might have a plum tree in their backyard. I didn't say we need to end war, because you have to come in at all different kinds of angles. And my angle was every family deserves a backyard, a place to play, a place of peace. And so I practice gratitude. Not perfect. I'm not perfect. Let me tell you, last night, my son would tell you I'm not perfect, because he came over to make peach and plum jam. Well, he had his way and I had my way. A simple little thing like that I got to learn. to say, wow, you did all that. You just have to remember that everybody has ideas, and it's not our way or the highway. It's together we create the peace. And the jam came out beautiful, but I learned a lot just by working on jam. I learned a lot about saying thank you. And this morning I thanked him again for being so patient with me, because I had my ideas and he had his. It doesn't matter. You're going to have opportunities to learn more about who you are, no matter where you are. And that's why I wrote the book, Revolutionary Conversations, the tools you need for the success you want, to have peace in every conversation. And it's so simple if you just remember the first step. It's called stop. Just like at a stop sign, you don't go forward until it's safe. So you stop. Right then and there, if somebody is saying something that you're not in agreement with, and the next step is help. I need a little help. Can I ask you a question? Stop, help, ask, risk. And once you find out where they're coming from, then you can risk and say, would you mind if I share my idea, and think about what you're saying? And then you have a conversation. But you don't have that conversation just because you like that person. I always use this analogy in my PR business. I would say, you find the woman of your dreams and you take her out to lunch and you bring an engagement ring. She doesn't know you from Adam, but you know she's going to be your wife. So if you want peace, you have to romance the places that you know need peace. Figure out ways that you can romance them. And I was telling people, you don't propose marriage to the first meeting. You have more meetings where you get to know each other. And that's the beginning. And one of the things that Robert and I always have done, and I'm sure you can be that way too, is been enthusiastic about peace. Enthusiasm allows you to practice that peace that we need. Robert wrote 12 poems: decide to be healthy, decide to be happy, decide to be peace. And it is a decision. No matter what, it's a decision. And I know some of you are not living in peaceful lands, and it's hard, but you might be the peace somebody else may need. And if you're writing an email, think, what can I accomplish by this email? What can I ask them to do? Maybe it's nothing more than keep hope alive, right? Keep hope alive. How do you nurture hope today? I live in a college town because college students are so hopeful. And so keep that hope alive and share. When my share part of your life, if you're writing an email to somebody and you really want them to do something, tell them why and give them how to do it. When Marianne Williamson, I can't remember what year the Olympics were happening, somebody had an ad on that Olympic advertisement moment of a man with a big machete chasing a woman through a garden. And we don't even know what the fight was, but Marianne Williamson copied that. She sent it to 100 of her friends. They also got the address where to oppose this. They got the phone number, and they went to action. And that ad was taken off in less than 24 hours. And I don't even know what they were advertising, but it was so awful. And so I tell you again that world peace is not a pipe dream. It's a possibility. And I thought, because we found out from our invitational, how can you go from linear thinking to world thinking? You want to know a simple answer? Mentors. You are the avenue to go from linear thinking to world thinking. And it took us a whole week to discover that. I mean, a whole week of world leaders. Now, if you had the privilege of being married to somebody like I did, we traveled the world, and that made me a global citizen and a peacemaker too. When I was in India and I saw what it was like to live in smog, I saw what it was like to live on a divider, be pregnant between all the traffic going by because she had no home. You become a global citizen instantly. But if you don't have the privilege of seeing the pain and the suffering of the world, then you get to be the mentor somebody else may need, even in the gas station, wherever you are. I'm in a gas station and this homeless man, and I think we have more homeless people than we do any other country, any other city. Why? Because we have sunshine and we have the ocean. They can take a bath in the ocean, come out in the sun, dry off, and go ask for some food. And we feed them. But I saw a homeless man in the gas station and he was hungry. And he asked the gas station man, "Can I have breakfast for 25 cents? I just happened to come in." And I said, "Are you hungry?" He said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, why don't I buy your breakfast? We'll put it on my credit card." And that whole gas station got quiet just because I did a peaceful thing. I just said, "Put it on my credit card." And he thanked me. He had breakfast. And everybody in that gas station had a moment of peace. And I always say, pass it on. You know all of this. And so I really want to hear from you too. I don't just want to tell you what I know, because I know so much, and we live through our passion and we live through our experiences. And so as I begin to wind down, I think the biggest thing I can ask you to do is to be an active peacemaker. You'll know what to do. Join the International Cities of Peace, become an International City of Peace, and shout your joys. Let people hear your joys. When my grandbabies were twins, my daughter called me when I was in Trader Joe's, and she said, "We're having twins." And so I went to the Trader Joe's kiosk and I said, "Can you ring all the bells?" And they rang all the bells. And I said, because these are the babies that are going to be born in a community of peace. So shout your joys, shout your happiness. Tell people, even if it's a birth of your twins, that this is you're working for peace because I want them to have peace. And as I look around these incredible people who joined us today on a Sunday, it makes me remember that we are the peace the world has been waiting for. It's a big responsibility. And someday I hope somebody does a speech and they say, "I'm standing on Barbara Gaughen's shoulders," because I remember she said this. And you notice I wear jewelry? This is all hand-me-down costume jewelry. And when my little granddaughter was 3, she said, "Grandma, put on your jewelry and come visit us. Do something fun while you're along the way trying to create peace." And I have drawers full of earrings because I have no pierced ears. So anytime anybody without pierced ears dies, they will their jewelry to me. But I have their hopes in that jewelry. I have their dreams in that jewelry. And I wear this comes from an old lady who just recently died. And my daughter gave it to me. She said, "She died, but this is a great necklace." I said, "I'll wear it. I wonder what she wanted me to do." And I wear it. And so you see, be something, well, look pretty. I say, people always compliment me on my clothes. No, I say, but look what I'm wearing. A Rotary pin that says, "Turn the impossible to possible." And I also wear my peace pin for the Rotary Action Group for Peace, which I'm going to be sending to Helen and all those who didn't get one. It's a little pin that says peace. But look what it says underneath. Peace is not something you wish for. It's something you make, something you do, something you are, and something you give away. And so with that, I'm going to end. And Alex, is there anything else I should have mentioned?
Oh my gosh, Barbara, thank you so much for these words of wisdom. I was wondering, like among us, we have Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Like, I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. There was Max who deployed to Afghanistan, Michelle who deployed to Iraq, and we have doctors like Vlad Mina and Georgia, who are young professionals and young doctors, and we're all really trying to get a together with everybody else to take a more active stance on achieving peace. Can you tell us a little bit more about your Ending War 101 and that effort? I see Mike, Helen, and Tom being here, and I think that will be an interesting project that we'd love to be part of as well.
As much as I'd like to say, I can tell you a lot about it. I can tell you that World Beyond War was the foundation for Ending War 101. Helen Peacock, who I'm going to ask to unmute and tell us a little bit about this. The next course is going to start in September, and I would love to have us all. I'm going to take it again. It'll be my third time because I love the videos. I love the videos that are there with the context of the people who are saying things like Martin Luther King, in good conscience, I cannot support a war. In good conscience, I have to say these words, and I have to appear on whatever situation I can be. I need to bring the peace that our world should be having. So Helen, why don't you tell us a little bit about Ending War 101? And Mike Caruso is on the team. Yeah, Richard Denton's on the team. We're a team. Helen Peacock, please, creator, founder, a great wordsmith. She took all those words and made it into a 6-hour course. How she did it, I don't know. Okay, Helen.
Well, this is the mission of World Beyond War. And it's not about ending one war or one set of sanctions or protesting in a particular injustice. It's about turning around and looking at the institution of war itself and the thinking and the systems and the structures and the way in which we are, most of us unconsciously, allowing war to continue. And it's been written almost as a consciousness raising course. It asks 4 questions. Is ending war possible? Is it even possible to end war? John Lennon put up a massive billboard in Times Square 40 years ago, and he said, war is over if you want it, if you believe that it's possible. So is it possible? First question. Second question, there have been 250 wars since World War II, since the United Nations was formed to end the scourge of war. 250. So is there such a thing as a just war? Which of those 250 wars could we say was a just war? So it asks the question, is a just war even possible? And then the third question, the third module, is what is it costing us to allow war to continue through our silence, through our lack of awareness, the ways in which we are allowing, cooperating with war? What is it costing us? And in fact, it shows that the the war machine is putting in $100 for every $1 we're investing in humanitarian efforts and peacekeeping efforts and so on. We're being outspent by 100 to 1 as a way of putting it. And so if we don't wake up to the way that that is happening and interrupt that level of cooperation, it doesn't look good. And then the 4th chapter says, what can we do? The 4th is, what can we do? The whole thing just takes 6 hours. You're asked these questions for yourself. And as Barbara said, it's based on this incredible amount of in-depth research that was done by World Beyond War that you can delve into if you want to. You can click on links if you want to, or just go through the course. Barbara did it in an afternoon. She turned off her phone, believe it or not. She closed everything else, believe it or not, and just curled up and went through it the first time in an afternoon. And we would love it. All of us here would love it if you would be interested in taking the course. The next one is September the 4th, beginning on September the 4th. It will go for 2 weeks, and we will have facilitators. Mike, if Mike can wave his hand, he'll be one of our facilitators, and Barbara and I and others. Richard, where are you? Can you wave your hand, Richard? So we are starting a movement, plain and simple. We are asking everyone who takes the course to then enroll 3 people in the next course, and then enroll 3 people in the next course. And we're aligned with what World Beyond War is doing. We're in line with what the United Nations is doing, with its efforts for a culture of peace, and with its work around sustainable development goals. And it doesn't seem right to say starting a movement. We're starting our movement in alignment with many others around the world who are also doing the same thing. We feel that
one thing to Helen, and that is we will be having Zoom meetings 2 times in this next course, so we can have dialogue around what we're learning. And that's key. That's really key. Helen?
Well, I was going to say, you kind of need a buddy when you're taking the course. It's really important to have someone that you can talk to. And we do have these Zoom calls as well. And I was also going to say that there's been a tremendous amount of work done around building a culture of peace, and a tremendous amount of work done around resolving conflict nonviolently. We know so much now for mediation and conflict resolution. We have all those tools available to us now. They weren't around at the end of the Second World War. The understanding of a culture of peace wasn't around at the end of the Second World War. So the mentality that we have today that is allowing war to continue is still based on the Second World War mentality. And this is where we kind of have to wake up and recognize we're living in a different world. And the missing piece, I think, in the shift that we want to see is the piece around, call it demilitarizing security, call it ending war, call it actually interrupting the systems and the structures and the thinking that have been allowing war to continue. Thanks for letting me speak.
Oh, what a pleasure to hear your summary, because Mike and I and Richard have been on the team with you since the beginning. And the summary you gave today is just so exact what we needed to hear. Now, Mike Caruso is one of my heroes, as whose shoulders I stand, because Mike started the Peace Builder Clubs. If he wouldn't have started those Peace Builder Clubs, had the vision. So, Mike, I really thank you. Do you want to say a couple words about why you're still enthusiastic about Peace Builder Clubs?
Well, sure. It's meetings like this when you just you're surrounded by people with so much enthusiasm for peace. Back in 2011, the Rotary International president was a fellow named Kalyan Banerjee. He didn't have a theme for peace. His theme was reach within to embrace humanity. But when he gave his first speech that year, he talked about if you want to have peace, you have to start with yourself. Peace within yourself, and then peace in your family, in your community, and then it expands from there. And it's meetings like this where you have so many people who are not only expressing the peace within themselves, but learning about it and hearing all the wonderful stories. It's just a wonderful journey. And the idea of ending War 101 is also a journey, I think, to be at peace with yourself and your community, and do everything you can. And all of the people like Jesus and Gandhi and King, they live peace, whether we end it by 2030 or during our lifetime. The idea that we're living the journey, I think, is the important thing.
Robert, my late husband, died in 2010, and he always would tell me what it was like to live through a war. He was born in Alsace-Lorraine, and the French were shooting the Germans, and the Germans were shooting the French. And they were cousins. but government said they were the enemy. And they were shooting each other, and they were cousins on the weekend eating the same food. Then they'd go back to the trenches. And he would tell me stories about being in the French resistance. And I sent the book to Alex. Most of all, they taught me happiness. And in there, why was Robert happy? Because he was able to live beyond the war. Because he won an essay contest that said, how would you run the world? The first prize being an internship at the newly formed United Nations. He answered that call. Well, how would you run the world? And he won that essay contest and was a newly created United Nations in a war-torn factory. He became an intern. And he spent the next 40 years at the United Nations, from intern to assistant secretary general, to finding and creating the University Para La Paz in Costa Rica, where he took his newly beautiful wife into his arms, and we met and went to the cabin where Jerry and Des created the Bench of Dreams, where Jerry and Des invited us to come to Vancouver and speak in this lofty, gorgeous auditorium library to hundreds of students. And that's where Robert played his Ode to Joy, because he knew that if he played that harmonica, those young students, you're not Canadians. I remember his words. You're not Canadians, you're world citizens. And I play on this 10-hole harmonica, the Ode to Joy, because when you work for peace, you feel the joy. And if you have never heard that, go to peacepodcast.org and go to blog, my blog. And we have the beautiful Ode to Joy. You can also go to visioneers.ca and hear the Ode to Joy. He played on his 10-hole harmonica. Many times, Robert would finish his speech with tears in his eyes. He was so grateful to be alive, so grateful to not be in the war. And the stories, his stories of being in the war, and I'd love to hear your stories of being in the war. And I know it's horrible. Thank you so much, Sandy. There's Robert playing his harmonica. And so I look at you, and I'm so grateful that you're here today. Helen made a really good point. Get a peace buddy. Get somebody you can brag to. I call Helen and say, Helen, I got 3 new ones today. 3 more people are going to join. You need to tell somebody what you're doing so they can say, you that a girl, keep going. And then what happened when I told her that? She said, Barbara, you add a 0 to your 3. I'm going to bring 30 people. So will you help me get to my 30 people? This is Robert and me on his last Christmas before he passed. And we always were around. We had our own TV show. Get involved. Do things that make you happy, because that happiness will spread. And as I say, that's Robert and I at their last Christmas before he passed. He was pretty healthy until the end. But there was a time at the end when he had Alzheimer's. And if any of you here are taking care of somebody, you're a caretaker, just remember one thing I learned. They're never wrong, and smile. No matter what they do that you think, oh my God in heaven, how could they do that? You just say, oh my dear, look at that. Let's see what we can do about it. Fall out of bed, have a picnic on the floor. That's what we did. When they'd fall out of bed, I'd say, well, I can't pick you up, so I'm going to go get breakfast and we're going to sit on the floor and have a picnic. And then I'd call 911 and they'd pick them up and put them back. Long story short, ask for help also if you're a caregiver. Some of you might be someday. And the other thing I say is just sit and hold their hand. I wrote an article for a magazine called Sometimes Doing Nothing is the Best Thing You Can Do. You just sit and you be. And who would have thought 13 years later, I'm doing this work? Who would have thought that I meet Jerry and Des again, that I meet Alex, that I meet Sandy, all of you, Helen, you are the future. And the beautiful people I meet on Jim Halderman's evenings, once a month. It's just unbelievable. But you have to have a peace buddy. If I were to leave you with one thing, it is find somebody that you can count on to share your joys, because it sure does help. And also take peace. Anything that you think will bring peace to our Rotary clubs, we want to hear from you, especially when we have our bi-monthly Peace Builder meetings. Is there anybody else here who I'd like to? Oh, Richard Denton. I have to introduce Richard Denton. Richard Denton knows how to make people feel they can do anything. Richard Denton, why are you so powerful? From Canada. Past district governor, maybe that's one of the reasons.
I think it's again partnership, and we all work together as a team. And it is by, first of all, I think building relationships, getting to know people on more of a personal level. And once you do that, then they are going to be more agreeable to helping you out. And it is very much a team effort. And what I find is that I learn so much from my colleagues, from the people that are on this screen here right now. You are my mentors. And so I learn from you. And because of that, we are working together as a team, then we become much more powerful, and we can work with other organizations, the other NGOs, the World Beyond War, but also International Campaign Against Nuclear Weapons, the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War, the International Committee of the Red Cross, all of these other organizations, and there's just so many more that we can work with. And I think, again, it's thinking globally, but acting locally. So with our own club, or well, first of all, begin with ourselves. We can do our own divestment in our own portfolios from nuclear weapons and from war. In the States, you're very fortunate because you have the organization As We Sow that has rated over 5,000 mutual funds on a whole variety of variables, and you can choose the companies and mutual funds that are in line with your own values. Rotary itself now has a social responsible investing policy. And then you get your own club to join back from the Brink in the States, or ICANN Cities Appeal in Canada. You get your own municipal government to become involved. And I think even the Institute for Economics and Peace is now looking at not only from a national point of view, but from a state point of view, but I think also from a municipal point of view, because I think at a federal level, the decisions are already being made behind the scenes, but at a municipal level, we can have a direct influence. We can have a proclamation on August 6th and 9th about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We can get this to the public. And by, again, working at a grassroots level with your Rotary clubs and other organizations, we can change the world. So as you say, Barb, it's not impossible until it's done. Thank you.
That's what they say. It always seems impossible until it's done. And the Rotary Action Group for Peace is $20 a year. Join the Rotary Action Group for Peace. Get on our monthly meetings. Have some conversations. And this is the book I sent to Alexander. See all my stickies? I was married to him, but I still keep reading his words, because when he was done at the United Nations, his first wife, who passed away from Alzheimer's, said, "What about happiness for? Why don't you write about the UN? Because I want people to know you can be happy even in prison." Page 30. This is a book of messages. If you want me to send you this book, I've had recently found in the archives that I was sending to the UN for Robert 2 cases, and I will gift them to you. Just put an address or tell Alex the address. Alex, give me a list of all the people that want the book. We'll have a conversation. We'll do a Zoom call. What did we learn? Douglas Roach on peacepodcast.org. Douglas Roach talks about chapter 1. I can't be Robert Muller, but I sure can act like Robert Muller. And he was a best friend of Robert, and they wrote the book, Safe Passage to the 21st Century. I mean, I am an encyclopedia of peace, and it just spews out of me because I can't help it. But that's what I want to happen to you. I want you to be the peace other people need. And the rewards are there. Look at all the friends I have. I have more friends than I've ever had in my life, thanks to Zoom, thanks to my iPhone, and thanks to each of you for showing up today. Don't be a stranger. I'll put my email in the chat. It's real easy. Barbara Muller at peacepodcast.org. If you want a book, send me an email, peacepodcast.org. And Muller is M-U-L-L-E-R. So the best part is we just had an hour together to talk about peace. Jerry, I think you're going to jump out of the screen if I don't ask you to say something. Jerry, what would you like to say in our last 2 minutes?
Barbara, I would like to thank you for what you're doing, because it would have been so easy for you just to kind of rest on your laurels and say, well, you've done it. But you've started a whole new thing. I want people to know that Barbara is an award-winning visionary leader for the Visioneers, and she steps up when it's time to actually act. And what we say is that visioneering is not a spectator sport, that indeed it is getting in and playing the game, and that's what you do so well. So good on you for being such a champion.
It's an honor and it's a pleasure. When I say thank you, Jerry, because I have you to call me up and tell me something new. I didn't even know about entanglement. She's going to teach me about entanglement. I don't even know what that means, but I see a hand. And with that hand, I'd love to invite you to speak. Waswa, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Muller, for that inspirational story. And to all the Rotarians on this call, thank you so much for this initiative. As a Rotaractor, with statistics, we have very many Rotaractors globally, and demographically, the world is being taken up by the power of the young people, which I believe, if empowered, we can best achieve peace and also end the possibilities of war. So as an expert in peace, how best do you think we can make the Rotaractors and young people across the world know more about peace and not take it for granted? And on the other hand, if I have an idea of coming up with a Rotaract Pillars of Peace program, which is a short course to enable various Rotaractors become young peace ambassadors, how can we support that to happen? Because yes, there are Rotary Peace Fellowships, but if you make it there compared to over 175,000 Rotaractors across the globe that we have, and numbers are still growing. Thank you.
You are the blood of our future generations. The Rotaractors are key. You're the energy that we need. And I am going to tell you that in our Rotary Action Group for Peace, we are now trying to do more with Rotaractors, and we welcome your ideas. We need your ideas. We have them, our Peace Builder clubs often, but I want to start Rotaract club meetings. I want you Rotaractors to speak together, to find each other. So that's one of my goals. Tiana is a Rotaractor in our Peace Social Media Committee. She is dynamite. She just sent me an email today about she got invited to something, but she's very vocal, social media savvy. Social media is your vehicle. You can motivate thousands of people better than I can with my voice, but use your voice. Make your voice heard. You know, on WhatsApp, I can talk to somebody for 30 seconds and say something. Use your voice and call a Zoom meeting together. Waswa, I would be delighted to speak to Rotaractors if you'd like me to. You just put me in the email. I'd like you to speak to my Rotaractors. We can do anything on Zoom. I'll have 1,000 Rotaractors. I don't care how many get on there. Let's just have a conversation. It's about conversation. I interviewed 75 speakers from the Rotary First World Peace Conference at the Hilton in 2016. And I said, what is peace? And they said, peace is an internal process that makes you a peace. I don't even know what the next word was, but it starts with you, and every conversation you have can become a vehicle for peace. If it's an email, if it's a text message, if you just end with peace be with you. When you pick up the phone, don't say hello. Peace be with you. They're going to say hello. Let them say hello. You say peace. When you end the call on the phone, say thank you and peace be with you. Imagine just speaking the word peace every time you turn around. We only have one word for peace. In Swahili, they have 25. Why can't we just make more words for peace? Helen has a website, Pivot to Peace. You know, we're trying to come up with something that, because, you know, the universe wants world peace, no matter what every war fighter thinks. And they're usually, the war fighters are for peace. It's the governments, that are not. But war fighters, I have spoken to more war fighters and held their hands and thanked them. And I'm sorry that you had to go to war. We at the University for Peace have the first peace monument to the unknown peacemaker. Have a peace monument in your community. Get some stones, make the peace symbol. You know what it is, it's a circle. Bring that peace symbol out and say, this is my monument to the unknown peacemaker. We have to start shouting peace from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, shouting peace. In fact, somebody said, peace shouldn't be quiet. We should be happy, peacemakers, make noise, let people know that you're here for peace. And with that, I make noise and say thank you. I use my human voice, as Maya Angelou said, use that human voice and say the words that you want our world to be. Alex, with that, I turn this meeting over to you.
Barbara, could you please repeat your email address in the chat so people can reach you?
Here, right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. And be
Barbara.
peaceful.
My
And
pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. I don't know if you still have any more time. I know there was one more question in the chat, but if you have to go, then that's understandable. But Max, do you want to ask your question? I know
Sure.
you.
Yeah, sure. I can ask a question. Good evening, everyone. And my question was basically surrounding war and our efforts to have a world where inevitably we don't have to hear of any suffering around the world. So your colleague, I think she mentioned that there's been 250 wars since World War II. And I know this would have included wars that are happening concurrently with what's happening in Ukraine, but not covered by the global media. So my question basically is, how is the world beyond war equipped to navigate around cultural nuances that invariably exist to effectively disrupt the engines that facilitate wars, especially in developing countries? These countries where these wars are fueled by interest of the global north or destabilization for national interest.
It's a tough question. I wish I had an easy answer, but there isn't an easy answer. And I think about the people who don't want war anymore. And then I think about what we can do to motivate, as the Dalai Lama said, if you want peace, invite all of the the war creators, the grandpas, to go to a picnic with their grandchildren and say, these are going to be the war fighters of tomorrow, and watch how war changes. And there is no easy answer. And that's why I'm going to ask Helen, who has an idea to how we can make us even more visibly against the work of the warfighter that doesn't need to be needed anymore. Helen?
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. I mean, I think the question is raising a really good point. And I heard a presenter say that if we took the planet and we colored in red all of the countries that are experiencing war, and we colored in blue all of the countries that are manufacturing armaments, there would be almost no overlap. And the astounding thing is that in the global north, most people aren't aware of that. And I can just use a little example from me as a Canadian, a fellow Canadian with Richard. We're one of the most peaceful countries in the world, as rated by the Institute of Economics and Peace. We're the #1 country that people would like to immigrate to. We're this huge multicultural social democracy experiment that seems to be working. I mean, it's a pretty wonderful place to have been born into. And yet we facilitate North America's largest trade show for the military. Every year in Ottawa, our nation's capital, delegations come from all over the world to buy tanks, to buy armaments, to buy machine guns, to buy it all. And I've been speaking to people who live in Ottawa, and they are completely unaware that this is happening right under their noses. And that is what we want to kind of wake up to. We had a protest this year that caused the opening address to be delayed by an hour, traffic to back up for 2 kilometers. We need to do even more of that so that we can interrupt that kind of allowing that we're not even aware of, that we want to stop. Because when I speak to the average Canadian on the street, they are horrified. They do not want our country. We don't even want to be participating in the international arms trade, much less facilitating the international arms trade. So you raise a really good point, and it comes back to awareness from the people in the global north, who can then tell their governments to stop.
Courage over comfort is exactly what you did, Helen. You took your family. She even had a torn ligament, and she still went to make sure that she was present. And so I think that's the reason Robert was so happy, because he saw that he was out of war, because he saw his cousins and the maimed people coming back from that stupid war, he called it, the stupid war, the French shooting the Germans, all because somebody said, you're a German now. His grandfather changed uniforms 5 times without leaving home. So there you go. But you know, I'm only telling you what you know. But this is a recorded meeting. Invite your friends and have a conversation. Listen to the conversation again and write a little mind map. What did you get out of it? And Alex, with that, I say, thank you for letting us speak. Thank you for letting us speak to your Gen X. We need you guys. I love you all because you are the future. And as I say to my granddaughters, thank you. Thank you for being born. Thank you for telling me what I need to know. They say to me, Grandma, what have you done for peace lately? And I have to tell them, because I don't want to go to you know where and not have done my job. But I want to thank each of you because you're doing it. I look at you with great love. Thank you. Alex?
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you again for today. As much as I don't want to end this, because you know it's always good to listen to you. And thank you, Helen, for joining in with and Richard, and and Tom and there's it Mike. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to each of you again at one point in the near future. And your words matter to us as the younger generations. It's you see even in the room, kind of like as a cultural thing, where we don't like to. I don't want to say that our voice has been suppressed, but we're almost conditioned where we're not even turning on our cameras anymore. It's not a. I think this is a more of a generational thing, where we're almost told subconsciously we don't have a voice, and listening to you telling us that we do have a voice, I think it's very important and very encouraging. So thank you for being here and sharing that wisdom and that mentorship with us.
And don't
Thank
be surprised if you hear from Tom Carlisi, because he has these Peace Builder Club meetings and he'll be putting you on his email list too. And each of you, when you have an idea, let us know. Don't be shy. Just because I get 200 emails a day doesn't matter. Just say, I saw you on Alex's and I have an idea. Just put idea and I'll help you. All right. Bless you. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you all.
And I think our webmaster over there, he smiled the minute I got on and he's still smiling. And a smile is contagious. And thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Ez.